Hello, future financial geniuses. Are you ready to begin taking your first steps on the road towards financial literacy? If so, I need you to make sure you've already done a few things. First, make sure that you've already followed the tutorial linked on our website to create a free Google account. Second, make sure that you know both the username and the password to your free Google account. You may choose to follow along with this video or watch this video and attempt the steps later. If you would like to follow along, I will try to leave ample time for you to complete each step between my instructions. Now that that's out of the way, let's move on to our subject for today, your Google Sheets budget template. Hopefully you've had some time to look over our website and explore some of the resources listed there, as well as a chance to begin calculating your expenses. This video will specifically address how to use the Google Sheets template to best track your budget. Our first step will be to access the Google Sheets budget template listed on our website. Navigate to the Choosing Your Software template as shown on the screen. Next, you'll want to click on the image above the section describing Google Sheets. You will be prompted to make a copy of the budget template to put in your very own Google Drive. Log in to your Google Drive with your username and password. Click Make a Copy, and you now have your very own copy of your budgeting template. First things first, let's change the title of your budget template. So in the top left-hand corner, I want you to click where the title is, highlight the current title, and change it to something that makes sense for you. My name is Sarah, and this is going to be my sample budget, so I'm going to call it Sarah's Sample Budget. You want to use titles that make sense and that aren't too long so that you can find them later. Moving on, let's take a look at the budget spreadsheet itself. At first glance, this budget spreadsheet looks very complicated and overwhelming. The nice part about this spreadsheet is that someone has already done most of the work for us. If you're following along, go ahead and select cell E38. If you're just watching the video, go ahead and look at my formula bar up at the top of the screen. Do you see the long and rather complicated formula that appears in my formula bar? Luckily for all of us, some brave soul at Google has kindly created all of these formulas already. We want to make sure that we do not edit any of these formulas to avoid stopping our spreadsheet from working. In order to avoid breaking our spreadsheet, we always want to make sure of two things. First, we want to make sure that we only make edits to highlighted cells on the first page. So that would be the cells that appear in this pinkish color, or cells on the second page. And second, we want to make sure that we only make edits up here in the formula bar to make sure that we're only changing numbers and not formulas. That means on the first page, we can change the names of our categories and the amount of money that we're planning for the month. And on our second page, we can change the data for our transactions. Next, let's take a look at the pieces of our budget spreadsheet. So the instructions at the top prompt us to enter our starting balance in cell L8 before proceeding to the rest of the spreadsheet. That's what we'll do. Your starting balance should reflect what you have in your bank account before the month begins. That way, you'll be able to compare how your balance changes over the month. Now that this is filled in, let's move on to our budget categories. If a budget category doesn't make sense to you, don't use it. For example, if you live at home with your parents and don't pay rent, you likely won't need to use the home category. If you don't have a pet, don't use the pets category. Additionally, feel free to change the titles of categories to things that make sense for you. So if rent makes more sense for you than home, go ahead and change it. You can also change the names of custom categories to things that would fit in better for your lifestyle. Go ahead and make these adjustments in the expenses categories as well as the income categories. Once you've adjusted the names of your categories, you should input your planned expenses based on the expenses that you calculated. If you haven't finished this step yet, don't worry. Just watch as I input some sample expenses and see how it changes the spreadsheet. These numbers are simply sample numbers. They shouldn't line up with your numbers at all, so don't worry if they don't. Now we have a few numbers in our spreadsheet. It's important to note that you should enter all of your planned amounts well before the beginning of the month. Remember, this is how you're planning that your month will go. How it actually ends up may very well turn out different, and that's okay. Our spreadsheet will change as our lives change. Now that all of our planned expenses and income are set up, let's look at where you will be putting your actual transactions this month. This is the most important piece of the budget puzzle, keeping track of your transactions. Every time you pay for a coffee, pick up a Big Mac, or loan $1 to a friend, you need to put the transaction in your spreadsheet. Click on the Transactions tab at the bottom of your spreadsheet to get started. Putting your transactions in your spreadsheet isn't the complicated part. It's remembering to do it and being consistent that's hard. Something that might help is putting aside 10 minutes at the end of every day as your special budgeting time. Try putting a reminder in your phone or asking a family member or roommate to remind you to devote 10 minutes to budgeting. Like most things in life, using a little bit of time each day is a lot easier than trying to figure out where all of your money went at the end of the month if you didn't keep any records. Back to transactions. Our Transactions tab has two columns. The left one is titled Expenses. The one on the right is titled Income. Anytime you gain any extra money, even if it's $5 given to you by your mom, put it in the Income tab, along with the date, the amount, a short description, and the category that it falls under. Any money that you spend in any way, so in cash, with a card, through PayPal, or through Apple Pay, should be recorded in the expenses category. Again, you should include the date, the amount, a short description, and the category. I'm going to fill in just one or two sample expenses and a sample piece of income so that you can see what happens to our overall spreadsheet when I do. Notice how when I make the changes to the spreadsheet that I'm always using the formula bar. Again, this is to make sure that we're not making changes to the formulas that are present in the spreadsheet. Let's flip back over to our Summary tab. Look at the column titled Actual and the column titled Difference under both expenses and income. Can you see now that some of my numbers are automatically filled in? That is because of those complicated formulas that someone else was nice enough to put in our spreadsheet. If we scroll back up a little further on the page, we can see that our two graphs and the numbers in our gray block are changing as well. These will continue to change as we change our budgets throughout the month. We now know how to enter our planned expenses and income as well as our transactions into our Google spreadsheet. The final piece of the puzzle today will be how to create a link to share our Google budget. That way we can share our budget with our family members, roommates, instructors, or whoever we choose. For this step, we need to look at the top right-hand side of the screen. There should be a blue button with a picture of a globe and the word Share. Go ahead and click on the button. At this point, we have a few options for sharing our budget. Today, we are just going to create a link so that others can see our budget. We wouldn't want others without our in-depth spreadsheet knowledge to disrupt our formulas. Once the share box is open, click on Get a Shareable Link. You want to make sure that the statement that is visible says anyone with the link can view. If this is not the statement you can see on the screen, you can click the black drop-down arrow until you can select the statement that you need. Once you see the statement anyone with the link can view, go ahead and copy the link. Now you're able to post this link on social media, in an email, or in a message to a friend, and other people will be able to see your budget. Make sure that you follow the rest of the instructions on our Budgeting from the Ground Up website, and please fill out the Google form found there to let me know what you thought of the whole experience. Happy budgeting!